The rain battered the windshield as I sped down Route 1, my heart pounding louder than the storm. I was 25, broke, and driving to a woman who'd asked for a favor I didn't understand. By the end of that night, my life would never be the same. My name's Riley Parker, and I'd always been the dependable one, reliable, predictable, the friend who showed up with a toolbox or a shoulder to cry on. Growing up in a small coastal town in Maine, I learned early to keep my head down and my feelings quieter. Being a lesbian in a place where different raised eyebrows wasn't easy, but I managed. I worked as a freelance graphic designer, scraping by on odd jobs, and spent most evenings with my best friend, Mia, who'd been my anchor since high school. Her mom, Eleanor, was the kind of woman who made you feel like you were the only person in the room when she spoke to you. And that's where this story starts, with a text from Eleanor that lit a spark I couldn't ignore. "Riley, can you come by tonight? I need a favor." The message was simple, but it carried a weight I couldn't explain. Eleanor wasn't the type to ask for help lightly. She was 43, a single mom who'd raised Mia alone after her husband left when Mia was 6. She ran a small bookstore in town, the kind with creaky floors and mismatched armchairs, and she had this quiet strength that made people trust her. I'd always admired her, maybe too much. Her dark curls, her sharp green eyes, the way she laughed like she meant it. I'd spent years convincing myself it was just a harmless crush. That night, the bookstore was closed, but a soft glow spilled from the windows as I pulled up. The storm had turned the streets slick and empty, and my sneakers squeaked on the wet pavement as I ran to the door. Eleanor was waiting inside, her silhouette framed by shelves of books. She wore a navy sweater that hugged her frame, and when she saw me, her smile was warm but tinged with something else. Nervousness, maybe? "Riley, thank you for coming," she said, her voice low and steady. I didn't know who else to ask. I brushed the rain from my jacket, my pulse racing. "Anything for you, Eleanor. What's going on?" She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of a book on the counter. "It's complicated. Can we sit?" We settled into the armchairs by the shop's fireplace, the crackling flames casting shadows on the walls. Eleanor leaned forward, her hands clasped tightly. "I need you to help me with something personal," she said. "But you have to promise not to tell Mia." My stomach twisted. Mia was my best friend, my confidant. Keeping secrets from her felt like betrayal. But Eleanor's eyes held mine, and I couldn't say no. "I promise," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. "I've been hiding something for a long time," she said. "Something about who I am." The air between us thickened, charged with the weight of her words. I leaned closer, my heart hammering. "What do you mean?" Eleanor's gaze dropped to her hands. "I've never told anyone this, Riley. Not even Mia. But I think I'm attracted to women. And I don't know what to do about it." The world tilted. Eleanor, the woman I'd quietly adored for years, was confessing something that mirrored my own truth. My mouth went dry, but I managed to nod. "Okay," I said. "Why are you telling me this now?" She looked up, her eyes searching mine. "Because you're the only one I trust to understand. And because I need your help to figure out who I am, before it's too late." That moment felt like a door swinging open, one I wasn't sure I was ready to walk through, but I knew I couldn't turn back. The next morning I woke up in my tiny apartment, the memory of Eleanor's words burning in my chest. I'd barely slept, replaying her confession, the way her voice trembled, the way her hand brushed mine as I left the bookstore. She'd asked me to meet her again that evening to talk more, to help her navigate this part of herself she'd buried for decades. I didn't know what helping meant, but I was already in too deep. I met Mia for coffee at our usual spot, a diner on the edge of town. She was her usual vibrant self, her blonde hair pulled into a messy bun, her laugh filling the booth. "You look like you saw a ghost," she teased, sipping her latte. I forced a smile, guilt gnawing at me. "Just didn't sleep well," I lied. How could I tell her that her mom had just turned my world upside down? Mia leaned back, her eyes narrowing. "You sure? You've been weird since you got that text from Mom last night." My heart stopped. "She told you I was at the bookstore?" "Yeah, said you helped with something at the shop." Mia shrugged. "What was it anyway?" I scrambled for an answer. Just moving some boxes. Nothing big. She seemed to buy it, but I felt like a traitor. As we talked, my mind drifted to Eleanor. What did she mean by figuring out who she was? Was she asking me to be her friend, her guide, or something more? The thought sent a shiver through me, equal parts thrill and terror. That evening I returned to the bookstore. Eleanor was waiting, this time with 2 mugs of tea on the counter. I thought we could talk somewhere quieter, she said, leading me to a small reading nook in the back. The space was intimate, lined with poetry books and fairy lights. I've spent my whole life being what everyone else needed, she began, her voice soft but raw. A mom, a business owner, a pillar of this town. But I've never let myself explore this part of me. I'm scared, Riley. Scared of what it means, of what people will think. I swallowed hard, my own fears rising. You don't have to do this alone, I said. I've been where you are. Coming out isn't easy, but it's worth it. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment the world shrank to just us. How did you know? She asked. That you were you know. I laughed softly, nervous. I was 16, crushing on my math teacher. I just knew. But admitting it took years. Eleanor smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. I wish I'd been that brave at your age. You're brave now, I said, and I meant it. We talked for hours about her marriage, her fears, the moment she'd felt something for women but pushed it down. I shared my own story, coming out to my parents, the rejection, the slow rebuilding of my life. By the time we parted, the air between us felt different, like we'd crossed an invisible line. As I drove home, my phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. Thank you, Riley. For everything. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This was more than a favor. This was the start of something dangerous and beautiful. The next week was a blur of stolen moments and secrets. Eleanor and I met at the bookstore every evening, under the guise of organizing inventory. In reality, we were unraveling her truth, piece by piece, in that quiet nook surrounded by poetry and soft light. Each conversation felt like peeling back layers of a life she'd kept hidden, and I was falling deeper into something I couldn't name. Eleanor's questions were endless, about my coming out, about what it meant to live openly as a lesbian, about the fear and the freedom. Did you ever feel like you were betraying someone by being yourself? She asked one night, her voice barely audible over the hum of the radiator. I thought of Mia, of the secret I was keeping. Yeah, I admitted. But sometimes being true to yourself is the only way to stop betraying your own heart. Her eyes lingered on mine, and I felt the air shift, heavy with unspoken possibilities. I wanted to reach for her hand to close the distance between us, but I didn't. She was Mia's mom. She was still figuring herself out, and I was terrified of what it would mean if I crossed that line. One evening, Eleanor suggested we go somewhere else. I need a break from this town, she said, her voice edged with defiance. Somewhere I can breathe. That's how we ended up at a tiny bar an hour away in Portland, a place with dim lights and a jukebox playing old jazz. Eleanor looked different there, freer, her dark curls loose around her shoulders, her smile unguarded. We sat in a corner booth, nursing drinks, and for the first time she talked about the future. I want to know what it's like, she said, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. To be with a woman. To not hide. My heart thudded. You will, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. When you're ready. She looked at me, her green eyes piercing. What if I'm ready now? The words hung between us, electric. I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone buzzed. Mia. Where are you? Mom's not answering her phone either. Guilt crashed over me like a wave. I texted back a vague excuse about work, but the moment was broken. Eleanor's face fell, and she reached for her coat. We should go, she said softly. The drive back was quiet, the tension between us palpable. When we reached the bookstore, she paused before getting out of my car. Riley, she said, her voice low. I don't know what this is, but I don't want it to stop. I nodded, unable to speak. As she disappeared into the night, I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. This wasn't just about helping her anymore. I was falling for her, and it was going to break something, maybe everything. The next day, Mia cornered me at the diner. You're acting weird, she said, her eyes narrowing. And Mom's been off. What's going on, Riley? I froze my coffee cup halfway to my lips. Nothing's going on, I lied, hating every word. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her jaw tightened, the way she crossed her arms. You've been at the bookstore every night. Mom says it's work, but I know her. She's hiding something. My stomach churned. Maybe she's just stressed, I said weakly. Mia leaned forward, her voice low. If you know something, you'd tell me, right? You're my best friend. The weight of her words crushed me. Of course, I said, but the lie tasted bitter. That night I went to the bookstore, my nerves frayed. Eleanor was waiting, but her usual warmth was muted. Mia's asking questions, she said, her hands twisting together. She knows something's up. I nodded, my throat tight. She asked me today. I didn't know what to say. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I can't tell her yet, Riley. She won't understand. She'll think I've been lying to her all these years. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her it would be okay, but the truth was I didn't know. Mia was fiercely protective of her mom, and this secret could shatter their bond. Let's take it one step at a time, I said finally. You don't have to tell her until you're ready. Eleanor nodded, but her gaze was distant. I don't want to hurt her, she whispered. But I don't want to lose this, whatever this is with you. Her words hit me like a punch. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. You won't lose me, I said. I'm here. For a moment we stood there, inches apart, the air crackling with possibility. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing mine, and my breath caught. It was the smallest touch, but it felt like a promise. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Eleanor and I grew closer, our conversations deepening, our moments together charged with a quiet intensity. We'd steal hours at the bookstore, or drive to quiet beaches where no one knew us, talking about everything and nothing. I learned her fears, her dreams, the way her laugh could light up a room. And every time her hand brushed mine, or her eyes lingered a little too long, I felt myself falling harder. But the guilt was always there, a shadow over every moment. Mia was starting to pull away, her texts shorter, her smiles forced. I knew she sensed the distance, the secret we were keeping, and I hated myself for it. One night, as Eleanor and I sat on a pier watching the waves, she turned to me, her face soft in the moonlight. Riley, she said, her voice trembling, I think I'm falling for you. My heart stopped. I wanted to say it back, to tell her I'd been falling for her since the moment she asked for that favor. But the words caught in my throat, tangled with fear. Instead, I leaned in, and for the first time our lips met. It was soft, tentative, but it felt like coming home. When we pulled apart, her eyes were shining with tears and something else, hope. But as we drove back to town, my phone lit up with a text from Mia. We need to talk. Now. The diner was nearly empty when I met Mia. The neon sign outside buzzing faintly. Her text had been a knife in my gut. And now, sitting across from her, I could barely meet her eyes. She knew something, and I was terrified of what came next. Riley, what the hell is going on? Mia's voice was sharp, her hands clenched on the table. You and Mom are acting like you're hiding some big secret. I'm not stupid. I swallowed hard, my mind racing for an excuse, but every lie felt like another betrayal. Mia, it's not what you think, I started, but she cut me off. Then tell me what it is. You're my best friend and Mom's mom. Why are you two sneaking around? The truth clawed at my throat, but I couldn't speak it. Not yet. Not without Eleanor's permission. We're just helping each other with some stuff, I said lamely. Mia's eyes narrowed. Helping with what? You're at the bookstore every night. You're dodging my calls. And Mom's been weird, happy one minute, like she's hiding something the next. I stared at the table, guilt burning through me. I can't tell you right now, I said finally. But I promise it's not what you think. She leaned back, her face a mix of hurt and anger. You're supposed to be my friend, Riley. If you're lying to me, I don't know if I can trust you anymore. Her words hit like a slap. I wanted to tell her everything, about Eleanor's confession, about the kiss, about the way my heart was breaking under the weight of it all. But I couldn't. Not yet. I'm not lying, I said, my voice breaking. I just need you to trust me. Mia stood, grabbing her jacket. I don't know if I can, she said, and walked out, leaving me alone with the hum of the diner and my own regrets. That night I went to the bookstore, my chest tight with dread. Eleanor was waiting, her face pale. Mia called me, she said before I could speak. She's furious. She thinks we're hiding something. I nodded, sinking into an armchair. She confronted me at the diner. I didn't know what to say. Eleanor's hands twisted together, her eyes filled with fear. I can't lose her, Riley. She's my daughter. If she finds out like this, we'll tell her, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But we need to do it the right way. When you're ready. She shook her head, tears spilling over. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. This town, these people, they won't understand. And Mia, she'll hate me. I reached for her hand, my heart aching. She won't hate you. She loves you. She just needs time. Eleanor's fingers tightened around mine, and for a moment we just sat there, the silence heavy with everything we couldn't say. Then she leaned forward, her forehead resting against mine. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. But I know I don't want to lose you. I closed my eyes, her words wrapping around me like a lifeline. You won't, I said. We'll figure this out. Together. The next few days were torture. Mia stopped texting me, and Eleanor was a wreck, torn between her fear of losing her daughter and the pull of her feelings for me. We kept our meetings secret, but every moment felt stolen, fragile. One evening, Eleanor suggested we go to a support group in Portland she'd found online, for women exploring their identities later in life. I need to know I'm not alone, she said, her voice small. The group met in a community center, a warm, cluttered space filled with women of all ages. Eleanor was nervous, her hands fidgeting as we sat in a circle of folding chairs. The facilitator, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, asked if anyone wanted to share. To my surprise, Eleanor spoke. I'm Eleanor, she said, her voice trembling. I'm 43, and I've spent my whole life pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm just starting to figure out who I am, and it's terrifying. But it's also freeing. The room was quiet, supportive, and I felt a swell of pride for her. When it was my turn, I shared my own story. Coming out at 19, the rejection from my family, the slow journey to self-acceptance. Eleanor's hand found mine under the table, and I squeezed it, grateful for her presence. After the meeting, we walked along the waterfront, the city lights reflecting on the water. I didn't expect to feel so seen, Eleanor said, her voice soft. Thank you for coming with me. I'd go anywhere with you, I said, and I meant it. She stopped walking, turning to face me. Riley, I'm scared. But I'm also happier than I've been in years. Because of you. My heart swelled and I pulled her close, our lips meeting in a kiss that felt like a promise. For a moment the world was just us, the cool night air, and the steady rhythm of the waves. But the next morning everything changed. I woke to a voicemail from Mia. I saw you and Mom last night. In Portland. I know what's going on, Riley. How could you do this to me? My blood ran cold. She'd seen us. The kiss. The truth. I called Eleanor immediately, my hands shaking. Mia knows, I said when she picked up. She saw us. There was a long silence on the other end. Then her voice barely a whisper. What do we do now? The air in Eleanor's apartment was thick with tension, the kind that made every breath feel like a risk. Mia stood in the living room, her arms crossed, her eyes blazing with hurt and betrayal. Eleanor and I sat on the couch, inches apart but worlds away, as the truth hung between us like a storm about to break. Mia, please let me explain, Eleanor began, her voice trembling. Explain what? Mia snapped. That you've been sneaking around with my best friend? That you're what, gay now? And you didn't tell me? Eleanor flinched, her hands twisting in her lap. I didn't know how to tell you, she said. I've been trying to understand this myself. I didn't want to hurt you. Mia's laugh was sharp, bitter. Hurt me? Mom, you lied to me. And you? She turned to me, her eyes cutting through me. You're supposed to be my friend, Riley. How could you do this? Guilt clawed at my chest, but I forced myself to meet her gaze. I'm so sorry, Mia, I said. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just did. Just did, she repeated, her voice rising. You're kissing my mom, Riley. Do you know how messed up that is? Eleanor stood, her hands raised like she was trying to calm a wild animal. Mia, this isn't Riley's fault. It's mine. I asked her to help me, to talk to me because I was scared. I've been hiding this part of myself my whole life. Mia's eyes filled with tears. So what, you're a lesbian now? After all these years? What about Dad? What about me? Eleanor's face crumpled. I loved your father in my own way. But I wasn't honest with myself back then. I didn't know how to be. And you're everything to me, Mia. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd hate me. Mia shook her head, backing toward the door. I don't even know who you are anymore, she said, her voice breaking. Either of you. She stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Eleanor sank back onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. I wanted to comfort her, but my own guilt held me back. I'm so sorry, I whispered. This is my fault. Eleanor looked up, her eyes red. No, Riley. I pulled you into this. I should have told her sooner. We sat in silence, the weight of Mia's words pressing down on us. I reached for Eleanor's hand, and she let me take it, her fingers cold against mine. What do we do now? I asked. I don't know, she said. But I can't lose her. And I don't want to lose you. The next few days were a haze of regret and waiting. Mia wouldn't answer my calls or texts, and Eleanor said she'd locked herself in her room, refusing to talk. I threw myself into work, designing logos for clients, but my mind was always with Eleanor and Mia. One night, unable to sleep, I drove to the bookstore. It was closed, but I used the spare key Eleanor had given me and let myself in. The familiar smell of books and coffee grounded me, and I curled up in our nook, staring at the fairy lights. Eleanor found me there an hour later. I thought you might be here, she said, sitting beside me. Her face was tired, her eyes shadowed with worry. How's Mia? I asked. She's still angry, Eleanor said. But she's talking to me a little. She's hurt, Riley. She thinks we betrayed her. I nodded, my throat tight. I hate this. I hate that we hurt her. Eleanor reached for my hand, her touch steadying me. I don't regret this, she said softly. I regret how it happened, but not us. Her words sparked something in me, a fragile hope. I don't regret us either, I said. But we need to fix this with Mia. She nodded. I know. I'm going to talk to her again tomorrow. Really talk. No more hiding. I squeezed her hand, my heart aching with love and fear. I'll be there, I said. If you want me to be. She smiled, small but real. I do. The next evening, we sat Mia down again, this time at the kitchen table in their apartment. The air was heavy, but Eleanor took a deep breath and started. Mia, I need you to listen, she said. I've spent my whole life being what everyone else needed. Your mom, the bookstore owner, the perfect neighbor. But I was never honest about who I am. I'm attracted to women, and I've been too scared to admit it until now. Mia's jaw tightened, but she didn't interrupt. When I asked Riley for help, Eleanor continued, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't expect to fall for her. But I did. And I'm not ashamed of it, even if it's messy and complicated. Mia's eyes flicked to me, sharp and searching. You love her? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, my heart pounding. I do. I didn't mean to, but I do. The silence stretched, unbearable. Then Mia spoke, her voice raw. I don't know how to feel about this. You're my mom, and you're my best friend. It's a lot. Eleanor reached for her hand, but Mia pulled back. I need time, she said. I don't hate you, either of you. But I need time. She left the table and Eleanor's shoulders slumped. I wrapped my arm around her, pulling her close. She'll come around, I said, hoping I was right. As we sat there holding each other, I realized something. Love was worth the mess, the pain, the uncertainty. But it would take everything we had to make this right. Time stretched like a taut wire, each day heavy with Mia's silence. Eleanor and I tried to hold on to the fragile connection we'd built, but the shadow of Mia's hurt loomed over us. I'd catch Eleanor staring out the bookstore window, her face etched with worry, and I knew she was wondering if she'd lost her daughter for good. I wasn't much better. Guilt gnawed at me every time I saw Mia's name on my phone, her text replaced by an empty void. I wanted to fix this to make things right, but I didn't know how. All I knew was that I loved Eleanor, and that love was both my anchor and my storm. One afternoon, I found myself at the pier where Eleanor and I had kissed, the waves crashing below. I needed to clear my head, to figure out how to bridge the gap between us all. As I sat there, my phone buzzed. A text from Mia. Meet me at the diner. 6 p.m. My heart leapt, a mix of hope and dread. I arrived early, the diner's familiar hum doing little to calm my nerves. When Mia walked in, her face was guarded, but she sat down across from me, her hands folded tightly. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice steady but distant. "About you and Mom. About everything." I nodded, afraid to speak, afraid to break whatever fragile thread was holding this moment together. "I'm still mad," she continued. "But I don't want to lose you, Riley. Or Mom. I don't know how to fit this into my head. You're my best friend and she's my mom. It's weird." I swallowed hard, relief and guilt warring inside me. "I know it's weird," I said. "And I'm so sorry for how this happened. I didn't plan to fall for her, Mia. It just happened." She looked at me, her eyes searching. "Do you really love her? Like for real?" I nodded, my throat tight. "More than anything." Mia exhaled, leaning back. "She's happier," she said quietly. "I've noticed it. Even with all this mess, she's lighter. Like she's finally herself." My heart ached with hope. "She's still your mom," I said. "That hasn't changed." Mia's lips twitched, not quite a smile. "I know. I just need time to get used to this. To you too." I reached across the table, hesitant. "Can we try? To still be friends?" She didn't take my hand, but she nodded. "Yeah, but no more secrets, okay? No more secrets," I promised, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I told Eleanor about the conversation. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of relief. "She's talking to you," she said, her voice trembling. "That's a start." We were in the bookstore, the familiar nook, our sanctuary. Eleanor sat close, her shoulder brushing mine. "I want to tell people," she said suddenly. "Not everyone, not yet. But some people. I want to stop hiding." My heart swelled. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded, her eyes bright. "I've spent too long being afraid. I want to be brave. For me, for you, for Mia." The next day, Eleanor invited a few close friends from the support group to the bookstore for a small gathering. It was her first step toward living openly, and I was there, holding her hand as she introduced me as her partner. The word felt new, fragile, but it filled me with pride. The gathering was small but warm, filled with laughter and stories. Eleanor glowed, her smile brighter than I'd ever seen. But as the night went on, I noticed whispers from a few townspeople passing by the bookstore window, their stares lingering too long. The next morning, the gossip had spread. A customer at the bookstore asked Eleanor point-blank if the rumors were true, and I saw her hesitate, her confidence wavering. But then she straightened, her voice steady. "Yes," she said. "I'm with Riley. And I'm proud of it." The customer left without a word, and I knew the town was about to get louder. Maine was progressive in parts, but our small corner was steeped in tradition, and not everyone would be kind. That night, Eleanor and I sat on her couch, the weight of the day settling over us. "Are you okay?" I asked, my hand resting on hers. She nodded, but her eyes were distant. "I knew this wouldn't be easy," she said. "But it's worth it. You're worth it." I kissed her, soft and slow, pouring everything I felt into that moment. But as we pulled apart, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You and Eleanor are disgusting. Leave town." My blood ran cold. I showed Eleanor, and her face paled. "We can't let this stop us," she said, but her voice shook. I nodded, but fear settled in my chest. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about the town, about Mia, about the life we were trying to build. And I wasn't sure we were strong enough to face what was coming. The anonymous text was only the beginning. Over the next week, whispers turned to murmurs, and murmurs became outright hostility. A scrawled note was left on the bookstore door. Sinners don't belong here. Customers stopped coming, their absence louder than any words. Eleanor tried to stay strong, but I saw the toll it took. Her smile faded, her hands trembled when she thought I wasn't looking. I wanted to protect her, to shield her from the town's judgment, but I was just as scared. My own history, rejection from my family, years of hiding came rushing back. But every time I looked at Eleanor, at the way she held her head high despite the pain, I knew I couldn't walk away. Mia was trying, at least. She'd started texting me again, short messages about her day, and she'd even had dinner with Eleanor and me once, though it was awkward, full of stilted silences. "I'm working on it," she told me one night, her voice soft. "I just want Mom to be happy." Her words gave me hope, but the town's reaction was a constant wait. One evening, as Eleanor and I closed the bookstore, a group of teenagers stood across the street, shouting slurs. Eleanor's face went pale, but she grabbed my hand, her grip fierce. "Let's go," she said, pulling me toward the car. That night we drove to the pier, our safe haven. The waves crashed below and Eleanor leaned against me, her voice barely audible. "I didn't think it would be this hard," she said. "I thought I was ready." "You are ready," I said, my arm around her. "We're doing this together." She turned to me, her eyes shining with tears and determination. "I love you, Riley. I don't care what they say. I love you." My heart stopped, then soared. "I love you too," I said, and we kissed, the world fading away until it was just us, the salt air and the truth we'd fought for. The next day, Eleanor made a decision. "I'm not hiding anymore," she said, her voice steady. "I'm going to hold a reading event at the bookstore. For queer authors. For us." I stared at her, awe and fear mixing in my chest. "Are you sure? After everything?" She nodded. "If they want to hate us, let them. But I'm done being afraid." We spent the next week planning, reaching out to local queer authors and the support group in Portland. Mia even helped designing flyers with her graphic design skills, her way of showing she was trying to understand. The event was small but meaningful, a celebration of stories that had too often been silenced. The night of the reading, the bookstore was packed, friends from the support group, a few brave locals, and even some curious newcomers. Eleanor stood at the front, her voice clear as she introduced the authors. I watched from the back, my heart swelling with pride. But halfway through, a group of protesters gathered outside, their signs ugly with hate. My stomach dropped, but Eleanor didn't falter. She stepped outside, facing them head-on. "This is my home," she said, her voice carrying over their shouts. "And I'm not going anywhere." The crowd inside cheered, drowning out the hate. Mia stood beside me, her hand brushing mine. "She's badass," she whispered, and I laughed, tears in my eyes. The event went on, a quiet victory. But as we cleaned up afterward, Eleanor's bravado faded. "I don't know if I can keep doing this," she admitted, her voice breaking. "It's so much." I pulled her close, my heart aching. "You don't have to do it alone," I said. "We're in this together." The next morning we woke to vandalism. Red paint splattered across the bookstore windows, the word shame scrawled in jagged letters. Eleanor stared at it, her face pale, and I felt rage boil inside me. This was her livelihood, her heart, her home. "We'll clean it up," I said, grabbing a bucket and sponge. Mia showed up an hour later, unprompted, and the three of us worked in silence, scrubbing away the hate. When we finished, Mia hugged her mom, the first real embrace they'd shared since this began. "I'm proud of you," Mia said, her voice thick. "I'm still figuring this out, but I'm proud of you." Eleanor's tears fell, and I felt my own eyes sting. For the first time I believed we could make it through this, not just Eleanor and me but all three of us. That night we sat in the bookstore, the lights low, the air heavy with the weight of what we'd faced. "I want to keep going," Eleanor said, her hand in mine. For us. For everyone who feels like they can't be themselves. I nodded, my heart full. Then we will, I said. No matter what. The weeks that followed were a fragile kind of healing. The bookstore became a beacon, not just for Eleanor and me, but for others in town who'd been hiding their truths. The reading event had sparked something. A small but growing community of people who showed up for open mic nights, book clubs, and quiet conversations in the nook. Eleanor was at the heart of it, her strength a quiet fire that drew people in. Mia was coming around slowly but surely. She started joining us at the bookstore, helping with events or just sitting with us, her presence a bridge we were rebuilding. One evening, as we set up for a poetry night, she pulled me aside. I'm still weirded out sometimes, she admitted, her voice low. But I see how happy you make her. And I don't want to lose either of you. I hugged her, tears prickling my eyes. You won't, I said. We're family. The town wasn't fully on our side. There were still whispers, dirty looks, and the occasional cruel note slipped under the door. But there were also allies, neighbors who brought coffee, customers who returned with apologies, and new faces who found a home in the bookstore's warmth. One night, as winter settled over Maine, Eleanor and I sat on the pier, wrapped in blankets, the stars bright above us. I never thought I'd get here, she said, her voice soft, to a place where I could be myself. With you. I leaned against her, my heart full. You're the bravest person I know, I said. And I'm so glad you asked me for that favor. She laughed, the sound warm and free. It was a hell of a favor, wasn't it? We kissed slow and steady, the waves a quiet witness to our love. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't easy, but it was ours. Months later, the bookstore hosted its first Pride event, a celebration of love in all its forms. The place was alive with color. Rainbow flags draped over shelves, laughter filling the air. Mia was there, reading a poem she'd written about family, about forgiveness, about love that grows through pain. Eleanor stood beside me, her hand in mine, her eyes shining with pride. As the event wound down, a young woman approached us, her voice shy. I came out to my parents last week, she said. Because of this place. Because of you too. Eleanor's grip on my hand tightened, and I saw tears in her eyes. Thank you for telling us, she said. You're always welcome here. That night, as we locked up the bookstore, Eleanor turned to me, her face soft in the moonlight. This is what I want, she said. To build something real. With you. I smiled, my heart swelling. Then let's keep building. Looking back, that favor changed everything, not just for me and Eleanor, but for Mia, for the bookstore, for the town. It wasn't just about love. It was about courage, about choosing truth over fear, about making space for others to do the same. We'd faced hate, loss, and uncertainty, but we'd also found joy, connection, and a home in each other. Eleanor and I are still here, running the bookstore, holding space for stories that need to be told. Mia's with us, her laughter a reminder that family can bend but not break. And every time I look at Eleanor, at the woman who asked for a favor and gave me her heart, I know we're exactly where we're meant to be.